Revolution is to have a sense of the historical moment, is to change everything that needs to be changed, is equality and full liberty. It is to be treated and to treat others as human beings. It is to emancipate ourselves by our own selves and with our own efforts. It is to challenge powerful domineering forces inside and outside the national context. It is to defend values in which you believe to the price of any sacrifice. It is modesty, selfishness, solidarity, and heroism. It is to never lie or violate ethical principles. It is a deep conviction that there is no force in the world that may crush the forces of truth and ideas. Revolution is unity, is independence, is to fight for our dream of justice for Cuba and for the world. It is the basis of our patriotism, of our socialism, and of our internationalism. This man whose memory we remember today, whose birth we remember today, told us once, the trenches of ideas are more valuable than the trenches of stone. And today we are a gigantic trench of ideas, a revolutionary trench, a moral trench of that which you have just mentioned. And if once there was a San Juan, and some people who deserted in difficult times, we say that in our people there will never be a San Juan. And if after a San Juan there was a Baragua, he said, the future of our land will be an eternal Baragua. That came before us. Long live Cuba that lives and works for socialism. Homeland or death, we shall prevail.
Sí, muy buenos días. El Instituto Cubano de Amistad con los Pueblos y el comité organizador de la quinta Conferencia Internacional por el Equilibrio del Mundo les damos la bienvenida a la Comisión de Solidaridad, que también lleva implícita la amistad y la paz entre nuestros pueblos. Estaremos sesionando, como deben haber visto en los plegables que se fueron compartiendo, estaremos sesionando durante todo el día de hoy, 27 de enero, para rendir homenaje al apóstol de la independencia de Cuba, nuestro héroe José Martí, en el 170 aniversario que hemos estado conmemorando durante todas estas conferencias. Pero también le daremos homenaje, digno homenaje al comandante Fidel Castro, de cuyas palabras hemos podido apreciar y que fue uno de los continuadores de ese legado del apóstol. Me acompañan en la mesa en el día de hoy presidiendo esta comisión Emilio González García,
head of the Department of International Relations of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Cuba. We're honored with the participation of the President of the Cuban Institute of Friendship of the People and hero of the Republic of Cuba, Fernando González LLort, and another hero of the movement of solidarity with Cuba, accompanying us today, the Puerto Rican patriot Oscar López Rivera. With us, Gay Walker, the Executive Director of the Interreligious Foundation for Community Pastors for Peace.
David Dutchman,
President of the Ocean Press Editorial Ocean Sur, who has also been a collaborator with Cuba for many years and who will share with us part of the literature and bibliography that he has been producing. His publishing house is already 40 years old.
Doctor in Science Manuel Enrique Rodríguez Yata,
researcher of the Fidel Castro Center,
and
Raúl Capote, researcher and journalist, who will be in the afternoon sharing with us a presentation of hybrid wars. Among us, we have the head of the Ideological Department of the Central Committee, Rogelio Polanco, and very dear friends from the embassies of Palestine, the Arab Republic of Sahara, the South American Brigade, and many representatives of social and solidarity in the whole world. And as I was telling you, we have heroes among us. They both shared for several years in prison, and today they will devote a brief greeting. They have been an inspiration of the solidarity movement, but also an example that when we unite, when we fight for the same cause, we can have them with us in the 170th anniversary of our apostle, José Martí. Good morning. My words are going to be brief because I think that the most important is the participation of the panel members and of you. The Comrade Emilio Lozada, head of International Relations, Comrade Polanco, member of the Secretariat of the Central Committee of the party and its ideological department, comrades of the Presidium, dear Oscar, comrades all, we thank you for your participation and your presence. We know that this is a conference in which many commissions are simultaneously taking place, and we have the presence here in this hall full of friends, and they reinforce us in that sense and tell us of the value of solidarity in the entire world. Dear brothers and sisters in the struggle, it is an honor to be able to share with you these days of work, of dreams, of hopes for a better world, a world of peace and social justice for all. We start the Commission of Solidarity with Cuba, the fair causes and peace, thanking you for being here. It is a new show of the backing of the Cuban Revolution and of our peoples in the 5 continents. Cuba has resisted stoically the intensification of the unilateral sanctions of the United States and opportunistically maintained by the successor Joe Biden. Together with the stronger sanctions, they have tried to destabilize the internal order in Cuba. We have lived in the last few years under the permanent attack of a mediatic campaign that tries to destroy our achievements and not to recognize what we have done. And to all of this, you have opposed, and just by lifting your voices in favor of Cuba means to join with the voices of those that are disprotected, of the vulnerable, of the majorities. And we thank the permanent political and moral support that you have given us and the valuable solidarity aid that we have received in the last few years. After natural accidents and confronted with a pandemic that has disclosed the vulnerability of all. And in front of adversity, we have the moral and ideological strength to ensure the continuity of the revolution, which represents a symbol of struggle and internationalism. I call you to debate in a healthy way and deep way the subjects that we have chosen for the work of solidarity for solidarity and articulation among all, to redouble our efforts in favor of the necessary world peace and the sovereignty of the peoples and the peaceful living and solidarity and cooperation. Thank you.
Cedemos la palabra entonces al querido Oscar López.
Now to dear Oscar López.
Buenos días a todos y a todas.
Good morning to all.
Para mí,
for me,
es un gran honor
it is a great honor
estar aquí hoy.
To be able to be here today.
Como puertorriqueño,
as a Puerto Rican,
he vivido una vida bastante
I have
fuerte,
lived
he vivido
a
una
very
vida con muchísimo
life,
amor. He
with a lot
vivido
of love,
también una vida dolorosa,
a painful life,
por lo que nos
mainly
ha hecho
because of what
el gobierno estadounidense.
The government of the United States has done against us. That government that has damaged us so much is the worst enemy that we can find in the world, because
detrás de él aparecer un Donald Trump.
There can be a Donald Trump. There can be many Puerto Ricans that help also Donald Trump, because one of the problems serious problems that we have in Puerto Rico is that still the Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico have not attained the value to say we cannot tolerate the government of the United States in Puerto Rico. We cannot allow the government of the United States to rule in Puerto Rico. Well, this is a tough cause, our cause, because the Americans come into Puerto Rico saying that Puerto Rico is for sale, when we do not sell our homeland to anybody. We prefer to die standing and fighting, because we are not going to allow to do what they have done during all these years. We are talking of 1898 up to now, and those are many years. And I've seen Puerto Ricans who have lost their life, forced to serve the U.S. government. And I want you to know that I was forced to go to Vietnam. It was not because I wanted to go to Vietnam. It was because the government of the United States forced me. They want. If I didn't go, to Vietnam, they would put me in a federal prison for 5 years. And if there is a great injustice, is that when somebody has done nothing and you put them in jail. And the American jails are the worst in the world. A comment that made Amnesty International said that what all these structures that criminalize people is a legal crime for those that are in jail. And I was 36 years in jail, not 2 or 3 years. I was 36 years in jail. I was 5 years with this comrade, together with him, who is a brother. I live with the hope of being able to see a better world, more fair, if we find the way, because there are ways of struggling, there are ways of also harming the enemy, to be able to do what we haven't been able to do. We need a better world, a world that is more fair. We have to struggle for it, and from Puerto Rico I will try to do something and contribute to this better world. With love for all of you, long live free Puerto Rico, long live Cuba, all of it as it is.
Y qué privilegio tenemos todos
what a
de
privilege we
contar
have
con estos testimonios de
for having the
héroes
testimonial
reales,
of these
de los que nos
real
acompañan en
heroes
cada una
that
de las
are
causas
accompanying us in each one of our
solidaridad. Y
solidarity causes.
oportunamente José Martín nos
And
alertaba de estas
José Martí
apetencias
was
del
telling us
imperialismo
of the
usurpar
wishes
todas las
of
tierras de América
capitalism,
Latina y mucho más allá. Y
getting
qué mejor persona que el
advancing
comandante
over
Fidel
the
Castro
lands
para
of
dar
Latin
continuidad
America,
a esa
and
defensa
to
de la
give
independencia y
continuity
soberanía
to this
de
defense
todos
of
nuestros
independence
pueblos,
and
pero
sovereignty of all our
también
peoples, but
de convocarnos
also to call
permanentemente
us
a la
permanently
unidad, a
to
la
unity,
solidaridad, a
to
la paz, a
solidarity,
la colaboración.
peace,
Son esas las
collaboration.
premisas que
These are
estaremos
the
hoy
premises that
defendiendo
today will
en
be
este foro.
defending
Y
in
para
this forum.
hablarnos de esa
And to
entrañable
speak of
relación
these
que desde sus
relations
escritos, desde su lucha,
that from
tuvo el
his
comandante en
writings and
jefe
his
con
struggle,
José Martí,
the
pero también
Commander-in-Chief had with
implementando
Jose
toda
Martí and
esa
implementing
relaciones
all
de
the
solidaridad.
relationships of
Tenemos al
solidarity. We
investigador
have the
Manuel,
Manuel,
disculpen,
excuse me,
Manuel Enrique
Rodriguez Yata,
investigador del Centro
the
Fidel Castro,
researcher
quien hará
of
una
the Fidel Castro
presentación sobre
Center,
todo
who will
ese
make a
recorrido de
presentation
solidaridad,
of all
del
this
comandante
solidarity of Commander Fidel Castro. Good morning, comrades. I would like to reiterate the gratitude of the Center to participate in this debate, for the confrontation of, and to talk about the interests of our people. We have to start by saying that Cuba has since the first war for independence, with the solidarity of many towards our country. There were attempts of Simón Bolívar at the beginning of the 19th century to bring about expeditions to free Cuba from Spanish colonialism. There were hundreds of foreigners fighting for our freedom in our fields. There's a role of Máximo Gómez in our struggles. There's Agramonte, Maceo, and Martí also received the solidarity of many. Our founders dreamt with the Confederation of the Antilles as a common homeland, and there was a noble gesture of more than 1,000 Cubans that fought against fascism in Spain and in Europe during the Second World War. So solidarity has been cultivated in our people, in our land, for many years. We also had the support of women and men from many parts of our world. Che Guevara is an example of that. The feeling of solidarity became a principle, and it developed massively as a consubstantial part of the awareness, of the consciousness in the day-to-day life of the people, and identify us as people through a formative process. And the main guide of this was Fidel Castro, in whose political speeches he alluded constantly to human solidarity, revolutionary solidarity, solidarity aid, solidarity feelings, internationalist feelings, duty, internationalist duty, awareness, internationalist awareness spirit. So his deep knowledge of history and his practical experience as the leader of Cuba led him to affirm that without internationalism, the Cuban Revolution would not even exist. To be internationalist is to pay our debt to humanity. And that debt of gratitude of the revolution could only be paid by building a solid and exemplary homeland willing to extend its hand to anybody who needed it. And that is why in this international context we have to have a most comprehensive vision as possible, the significance of solidarity in the people that is present in the thought in Fidel Castro's thought, was already present during his years as a student in the defense of the Republic of the Dominican Republic, independence of Puerto Rico, and his role as a student in the streets of Bogota, Colombia, during the so-called Bogotazo. In those years, he forged the ideas that would turn him into a reference of today of human solidarity. There are four aspects that are essential in his character: the formation of an awareness and a feeling in our people towards the other peoples. In this sense, we just have to mention some of the processes. In 1961, the literacy campaign in which thousands of young people, practically children, went to the faraway regions of the country to teach how to read and write to people who were illiterate. In a brief period of 1 year, Cuba was proclaimed free of illiteracy. And that was the capacity of creating the generosity of some towards the others, that brotherhood that today reigns in our people, the infinite solidarity of our towns and localities to save human lives during the hurricanes that frequently hit or impact our island since 1963, or in 1981 when the hemorrhagic dengue was introduced in our country by our enemy that provoked the loss of lives in our people. Solidarity also saved many lives. So during all the revolutionary process since the beginning. We have seen the brotherhood, the solidarity and fraternity that the revolution has planted in more than 6 decades. Its leader, its guide was Fidel Castro, who always defended the idea that if you are not capable of having solidarity with yourself, you cannot express solidarity to other people. The second aspect is the solidarity of the revolution and our people with the causes of other people in the world. There are two essential ideas of our Commander-in-Chief that will express the essence towards the other peoples of the world. In such an early date as 1968, when he expressed, our duty today as an underdeveloped and poor people is to do the maximum effort to get out of this poverty, but we cannot think of full riches if we cannot help others. We have to educate our people, we have to educate our children in the concept of international duty. And the other expressed at the 6th Conference of Non-Aligned Countries in 1999, when he affirmed, everything that can be done for others, everything that can be done for humanity is what makes sense in the life of a revolutionary. We can be members of the human family when we do this. As a pupil of Martí by excellence, he was fulfilling what Martí said, that homeland is humanity. It is one of the most beautiful ideas of José Martí. More than idea is a conviction. In 2002, Fidel Castro said, if homeland is humanity, as José Martí says, we are citizens of the world and brothers and sisters of every people in the world. The ideas that demonstrates his solidarity spirit in defense of cooperation and friendship of the peoples and of the peoples to all the peoples of the world, including those whose governments are political adversaries of the revolution. For example, when he affirmed that we fight for the most sacred rights of the poor people, but also for the salvations of the first world that is incapable of preserving the existence of the human species, of ruling itself in the midst of contradiction of interest, and to rule the world because it should be democratic and shared, and we have to demonstrate mathematically that they have to preserve the life of our peoples. When he sentenced in categorical terms that the human species will reach the highest degree of consciousness when each people is capable of feeling the pain of other peoples in the world. But beyond the words said in one or other context, the materialization of all this in the political practice of Fidel has become evident. It would be interminable to tell you about all the examples in this sense, but it would be abstract if we do not mention briefly some of the demonstrations of solidarity in the different fields, in health, sports, constructions, and even in the military field. We have to mention, for example, the foundation by Fidel in an early date in 1960 of the Cuban Institute of Friendship with the Peoples. That was telling the people his solidarity vocation of the young revolution. The first medical mission in 1963 to the Republic of Algeria, 3,000 doctors went to Algeria, and we had very little doctors at that time. When the earthquake in Chile and Peru, the massive donation of blood to save lives in those peoples. Many Latin American countries know about plasma and Cuban blood that have saved the lives of thousands. In 1966, it was the year of solidarity officially. There was the first Congress of Solidarity with the Tricontinental Conference. And 1 year later, there was the OLAS, the source of revolutionary inspiration of the resistance of the people of Vietnam, in which context Fidel says that Cuba was willing to give its own blood for Vietnam. Fidel was the first leader of the world who visited that region in the world, Vietnam. And I believe that we have to mention what Fidel expressed in 2003 in Argentina. Tens of Cuban doctors have rendered their services in the faraway places of the world. We will never make preemptive attacks against anybody in the world. However, our country was capable of sending doctors that are needed to the most dark places in the world, doctors and not bombs. The medical care to the victims of Chernobyl, the children victims of Chernobyl, was one of the shows of solidarity. The establishment of the Latin American School of Medicine in 1999, the first of its type in the world. Young people from 72 countries study there nowadays. It's one of Fidel Castro's legacies. The creation of the Henry Reeve Brigade on the occasion of the Katrina hurricane, and Cuba offered its doctors to save the lives of thousands of American citizens. This brigade has rendered services in many parts of the world. The program Yo Si Puedo to Yes, I Can. It is a program of literacy that has worked in more than 30 countries. We have to add the military missions in Algeria, Nicaragua, Ethiopia, Angola, and this played a decisive role in the end of one of the most racist and inhuman policies of apartheid in the African continent. It is a moral lesson to the world. And this solidarity vocation of the revolution under the legacy of Fidel by hundreds of people of this has gained solidarity in many countries of the world. And we're talking about the third aspect, which is the solidarity of other peoples of the world towards Cuba. The solidarity with Cuba has become manifested before the revolution, but after the revolution, many demonstrations of solidarity. The support of the USSR, including the blockade that lasted all day, the solidarity of the Caribbean peoples and of Mexico that at the beginning of the revolution always opposed the blockade and the isolation of Cuba and defended us in all the international fora. The moral support of many people in the international organizations, in the human rights commissions in the United Nations and in many places of the world, voting every year in the United Nations against the blockade. The multiple demonstrations of solidarity during the special period when many people thought that the revolution could not resist, and after the fall of socialism, and the American people also for the return of Elian Gonzalez, of the child Elian Gonzalez, and also for the 5 Cuban heroes that were in prison. Today we have with us one of those heroes, the president of ICAP. The wide and the recent solidarity help received after the accident in the supertankers, the oil in Matanzas. More than 150 people have brigades of solidarity with Cuba. That is work of Fidel, who affirmed the friends, as we have evidence, are many and are decided to cooperate with the people. The seeds of solidarity sown for many years fructify everywhere. And as a fourth aspect, the significance of the Cuban Revolution as a sovereign process for the peoples of the world. In such a sense, I just want to bring over some of the essential ideas by Fidel Castro that express it clearly. After Girón, after the Bay of Pigs, the peoples of America were a little more free. And when he expressed in Sao Paulo, Brazil, when we defend our people, we have the sensation that we are also defending our sister peoples of Latin America. If that trench would fall, it would be a tragedy for the peoples of America. I believe that both ideas explained itself clearly if the example of resistance of the people of Cuba, not surrendering, of withstanding the most difficult conditions, even when some skeptics do not bet on us. It is a hope and a demonstration that in this world we can obtain justice and brotherhood among men. It is also a way of solidarity, international solidarity. This is said very easily in a few minutes, but it's an achievement of the revolution and solidarity for more than 6 decades. It is the legacy that Fidel Castro left for the future generation of Cubans, Latin American, and all the peoples that struggle for their true independence and for a better world, as he reiterated. In sum, it is the thought and the works of one of the most relevant personalities in our contemporary world with a profound humanitarian thought and feeling. The director of the Center, Fidel Castro, referred to this, and I am going to say this. Recently, on occasion of its visit to the Fidel Castro Center, a high official from Africa said, please take care of Fidel. Fidel belongs to the world, belongs to humanity. And this was said not to
the work of Fidel Castro. The work of Fidel Castro. I said I'm not going to speak anymore in the books by Ocean, but when they told me that this was Fernando asked me to do this, I had to accept. I accepted because I am part of ICAP. Exactly 50 years ago, I attended for the first time an activity in solidarity with the Cuban Revolution in Australia, my country. And then almost 40 years ago, I visited Cuba for the first time. And I was received by the ICAP, and so I've been collaborating with ICAP for 40 years now, with many projects. I am here as representing Ocean Press and Ocean Sur, mostly because we have received this collaboration from ICAP. We're here today to present a book that is the 3rd edition of an edition by Fidel Castro on solidarity. It is called Solidarity, that's entitled Solidarity Without Borders. And this is the 3rd edition. We edited this book for the first time 23 years ago, and it was Fidel himself who presented the book in Karl Marx Theater in a world meeting of solidarity. And I remember very well the contents of the book, and he made a comment on the photograph, his photograph that we presented in the cover of the book. This was a special moment for Ocean. This book it's an edition or a publishing that is in collaboration with ICAP. The first edition had the prologue of Sergio Corriere. The second edition, the prologue Kenia Serrano, and this edition, the prologue was made by Fernando. In this book, you can find a summary of Fidel's thought on the topic of solidarity. Several times in this conference, Frei Beto has spoken about Cuba as the country of solidarity, and in this book, you can find that. I have visited Cuba over 200 times, over 220 times in the last 40 years. Maybe it is not a record, but from Australia, it is something. But it is an example of the commitment that we have as Ocean Press, Ocean Sur, with the Cuban Revolution. What we published as Ocean Press, the first thing was a book by Fidel Castro, and today we are presenting a new book by Fidel because we have a commitment with the Cuban Revolution, with the Fidel's work, and with ICAP. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, David.
Thank you so much, David. Now we invite you all to share your opinions with this panel. We've been asking some friends to present their works. Some of them have been asking to speak, and they're asking us to give them the floor. But we would like to begin with a cause that is with the Palestinian cause. We have known recently of a massacre occurred in one of the Palestinian cities, and that is why we asked Dr. Maher Aboud Al-Awa, the first council and from the mission of the country of Palestine here, and we asked him to share his words with us. Thank you. Emilio Lozada, the head of the department of the Communist Party, distinguished presidency, and the other friends. It is difficult after listening two presentations, such as the Puerto Rican Oscar, the great fighter Oscar from Puerto Rico, and other comrades. And yesterday, like the example that we said goodbye to 11 of his children. However, taking into consideration that there is an international event among friends, we have prepared a small presentation on the need to strengthen democracy, popular democracy in Palestine. Recently, there has been an increase, a significant increase in solidarity with the Palestinian cause. There is of great concentrations in many capitals of the world for the Palestinian cause. These actions has been important. The polls about this say about the support to Israel has decreased, and there has been popular and parliamentary condemnation against the Israeli crimes against our people, ignoring all the international resolutions which evidences after they presented publicly the Human Rights Watch report about this policy of racial discrimination and persecution against the Palestinian people. The report presents, and I quote, the policy of the Israeli government makes everything possible to maintain the imposition of the Jews against the Palestinians, and reinforces the violations against the Palestinians who live in the occupied territories, including Eastern Jerusalem. Diplomacy in general and popular diplomacy in particular are concepts that try to achieve the same objective of each country, whether in bilateral relations or widely in the international arena. Popular democracy is a concept rather new, presented recently after the impressive development of technology in the information sector. This has been outstanding after that it was used by the greatest powers in the world in their foreign policy, especially by the United States. After the events of 9/11, with the objective of achieving their purposes that had not been achieved with other means. Different from traditional diplomacy, popular diplomacy is understood as steps and programs that propose to influence people and the public opinion, international public opinion, and the most important are the media, radio, television, the press, and social media. Going deep into academic associations to convince other parts about the thoughts and values and freedoms, this depends principally on the credibility and of imperialist events and their reasonable and logical discussion to convince other people with their point of view. At the same time that they work to earn the trust of the great masses internationally and obtaining their objectives by the state or the country that they try to achieve, popular democracy differentiates from others, from their continuity and not being conditioned by crisis or any other policies. Other methods of popular democracy is organizing delegations of unions and other forces from other countries to supporting the influence in their influence in other countries, considering as the most important for popular democracy what we said, the academic associations too. In the midst of this great technological development and social media, as Palestinians, we should, and this as institutions, the social society, government, the unions, and we should present this development in function of our interests politically, economically, and diplomatic too, by establishing relations with the intellect and the academic of other countries and trying to achieve a strategy of precise objective for this way, and in this way trying to influence public opinion towards our just cause, taking into account the diplomatic work, the traditional diplomatic work limited from other countries that had common interests with Israel, the occupying country, whether political or economic interests or both. The success of this popular democracy is that we need the continuity of resistance in all their manifestations, and particularly the pacific resistance to present the world the suffering and the facing of the occupation and defending our sacred places and presenting the criminal face of occupants of the occupation. Popular democracy will be a complement to the official diplomacy efforts to fulfill this objective of unmasking the Israeli. Before finishing, I would like to ensure all the friends around the world, many of them are here, the Palestinian people in their direction are going to follow their struggle in order to conquest their national unalienable rights of our country, self-determination, and the creation of an independent Palestinian state with the only and legitimate representative of the Palestinian people, wherever that is. That is undoubtedly, that's what we're going to do.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. And we continue with Mohamed El Anasi, the charge d'affaires of the Arab Sahrawi Republic from Cuba, all our solidarity and support with the self-determination of the people of Western Sahara. Thank you. Thank you, Comrade Lozada, Comrade Fernando, guests and delegates. It is an honor to be here with you, the people of goodwill, moved by principles of justice and equity in any field, that you have taken the time and the sacrifice to come even from far away for a conference such as this. The conference is reborn after the world has suffered a pandemic that has left the world a toll of death and problems at the world level. And before all, I would like to express our gratitude for the invitation and our support and solidarity with the heroic people of Cuba under the political leader and the excellency of Mr. Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermúdez, First Secretary of the Central Committee, the President of the Republic of Cuba. We condemn the infernal blockade imposed on Cuba against all international legality expressed with majority votes in the International Assembly, in the Assembly of the United Nations. I also bring you greetings of the militants and combatants in the Sahara against the occupation of the Moroccan regime. As it is known, we have gone back to our weapons from 13 November 2020, when units of the invading army violated our land and impacting many defenseless Sahrawis who were peacefully, and because closing this and the celebration of a referendum for the self-determination of the Sahrawi people, or the withdrawal of the administration of the Moroccan troops from the occupied lands and the occupied cities of the Sahrawi Republic. It is also important to say that during the last period, the violation of the human rights against the population in the occupied territories have been constant, especially against women, while around 45 political prisoners are incarcerated arbitrarily in infrahuman condition in 9 jails, Moroccan jails. Our cities are sieged for all the international observers, and the Sahrawi people has lost its confidence in the United Nations after 30 years of waiting, and we are determined more than ever to intensify our struggle against the occupation of our territory until total independence and the restoration of the sovereignty and peace. This is the resolution of the 16th Congress of the Polisario Front, closed on the 21st of January 2023, to intensify the armed struggle to expel the invader, culminating in sovereignty. Until justice is made, we will continue to strengthen the struggle of the Sahrawi people, because it's not only our own struggle, it is a legitimate struggle based on the principles of self-defense. We want to thank the solidarity movement with the cause of the Sahrawi people around the world, who have shown their unconditional support to the Sahrawi cause. We want to conclude this presentation with the words of José Martí, the Cuban hero: those who fight for ambition to make other people slaves, to have more in the world, for taking from other people their lands, they are not heroes, they are criminals. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank
Como
you.
les comentaba al
As
inicio,
I was
tenemos en la
saying
sala
as at the beginning
la
in
presencia
the
de varios
hall, we have the
brigadistas
presence of
de la
several brigade
brigada
members
suramericana
of
que
the
junto con el
South
ICAP se encuentran
American
realizando un
brigade
programa
that with
de
the
trabajo
ICAP are
voluntario
carrying
de
out a
visitas a centros
program
de
of
interés
voluntary
en
work,
nuestro país.
visits of
Es por
interest
ello que
to interest
quisiéramos pasarle
centers.
la palabra
So I
a
would like to
Tiago de
grant the floor to
Ávila y
Diago de
Silva
Ávila
Oliveira,
Silva Oliveira,
quien es miembro también del
who is a
movimiento de
member
solidaridad
of
con
the
Cuba en Brasil.
solidarity
Y para
movement
ir
in Brazil.
adelantando, por favor
And
que
please
se prepare el amigo de
prepare
Barbados,
yourself, a
David
friend from
Donald Dennis,
Barbados,
que
David
será el
Donald Dennis, who
próximo
will be the next speaker. Thank you, comrade. Good morning to you all. For me, it is a great honor to be here, walking among heroes with the people that has taught us about solidarity in the world, the Cuban people, as the brother just said, the people who teaches us every day under very difficult conditions. It is necessary to have solidarity. It is a challenge, a fundamental challenge. And us from the Solidarity Brigade, there are people in Bolivia who survived a coup, and they were first they had the war of water, the war of gas, and they are survived. So many teachings. We have the comrade from Argentina that also under difficult. They have a trench because there is extreme right and the comrades from El Salvador, comrades from many parts, from Brazil, that now recently we have just carried out something which is defeating the extreme right and start a new cycle here. And also to greet the comrades from Chile, who also defeated the Pinochet constitution, and they're demonstrating here. For us, brothers and sisters, the teachings of Martí that the homeland is humanity, that we cannot give 1 centimeter to colonialism and imperialism, is something very important. This is our challenge in life. We must learn with the peoples of Palestine, of the Puerto Rico, of the Sahrawi. Oscar Rivera honors us with his presence here. Comrades, it is an honor to be here on Jose Martí 170th birthday, because this is not just something. All the people have some heroes who inspire, but Jose Martí is a hero to all countries, because the Cuban people who led this battle, this fire, what its apostle requested. Jose Martí is with us in the struggle for the revolutions of the 21st century, the resistance of all the peoples, and for us in the Solidarity Brigade, who come here to walk among heroes and the best times of our lives. For us, it is a pleasure, and I am grateful to ICAP and to all those people who bring friendship as a revolutionary task, because the comrades from ICAP bring solidarity with the same discipline with those that under other conditions would carry a weapon. This task has the power of changing the world. Thank you.
Colleagues from ICAP, we appreciate all these words. They can be like compliments, but they are commitments to continue with our solidarity from Cuba, from different movements of solidarity in Cuba and in the whole world. Please, friend David Dennis. President from the Association of Barbados, Cuba, coordinator of the Caribbean Network of Solidarity with Cuba, and coordinator of the Latin American and Caribbean Network of Solidarity with Cuba and Just Cause.
Buenos días, compañeros y amigos. Estoy muy feliz de estar aquí con ustedes en esta sesión tan importante. He estado en muchas actividades con el ICAP desde 1984. Para nosotros, en Barbados y en el Caribe, Cuba significa mucho para todos. Nosotros hemos aceptado la solidaridad de Cuba y en las luchas de liberación en África jugó un importante papel en educando a las personas pobres en el Caribe, ofreciendo muchas becas. Y por todo esto, nosotros dedicamos nuestra vida, nuestro compromiso a las luchas del pueblo cubano y solicitamos que se levante el embargo a Cuba. Estoy muy feliz de estar aquí con nuestros hermanos de Puerto Rico que están luchando por la independencia, nuestros hermanos y hermanas de la región de Palestina que están luchando contra las fuerzas malignas. Estoy aquí de estar feliz de estar con ustedes, nuestros hermanos y hermanas que están luchando por la independencia en las Américas y estar en Barrio Caribe inglés. Estamos en solidaridad con todos ustedes.
And I want to end by saying that this conference is a very important conference for the poor and powerless people of the world.
Para los pueblos pobres del mundo. Y estoy esperando que esto no permanezca siendo un lugar solamente para hablar, sino que de verdad nos esforcemos para usar todas las herramientas que se proponen en esta conferencia para ayudar
against all forms of imperialism, all forms of exploitation. Because our African descendants today are fighting a very serious battle for reparation. We have suffered a lot during that period of slavery, and we are demanding that those nations that exploited our African people, our Indian people who came to the New World as indentured servants, our indigenous people, we are demanding that those forces, those people who exploited those people during the period of slavery, that you pay reparations, because this is very important for our people. And I end by saying, long live the Cuban Revolution. Long live the relationship between Cuba and the Caribbean. Forward ever, backward never, the words of our brother Maurice Bishop from Grenada. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. We continue now this debate with friend Sergio James Fines, the President Defensor of the Human Rights in Bonaire. And then the next is Aline Grand Emir from the Party for Decolonization of the French Guiana.
Si lo desean, pueden intervenir desde el mismo asiento o, bueno.
If you wish, you can speak from your seats. You can come here, of course, but...
Buenos días.
Good morning. Thank you for... I come here with my heart. My language is Papiamento. It's the two only language, native language, official language that exists in the Caribbean. I come from Bonaire. I have some time. I don't have much time to speak about our situation, but it's the name of Bonaire maybe is not known. But I'm going to present a report of that will explain themselves in this situation and tell you that share with you with other countries of the world that are here our situation. I'm going to be here to, if you have any question or want to follow up of what is going on in with our situation. So then we can speak of everything. Of the people of Bonaire were colonized in 2010 by the United, with other social inequalities, and the peoples of Bonaire have been imposed. They deprive people of their natural resources, and Unasur, Oas, and Parlat. After we did not receive any answer from these things, James the list was translated that we do not want to look at Bonaire. In 2010, Bonaire was part of it has no rights. The people of Bonaire are citizens with no rights. Therefore, our rights are being deprived with promotional campaigns to reside in Bonaire with after 2 months, the government notified that with 48 hours before to go to the offices, and thousands of people began to protest for this. So the referendum in 2015, 55% voted no, and they were sitting 24 hours of the day in front of the office of the government protesting for this. So in order to tell the people of Bonaire that the referendum had not been right, the Dutch parliament refused to receive the people of Bonaire. They refused that, and it was voted no. We continue to be a colony, and in the last decade we were reduced to also a neo-colony. Please support our struggle to give Bonaire what it rightfully deserves in the United Nations. They have the right to self-determination, to decolonization, and repairing justice.
Muchas gracias a ustedes.
Thank you so much. We had requested friend Eileen Grant to be ready. Are you there? Eileen Grant Emil from the Movement Party for Decolonization and Social Emancipation of...
Buenos días.
Good morning.
Sí, voy a hablar en francés.
Está prevista para el inglés, quizás si algún colega suyo puede ayudarla.
Je vais parler en français et il traduira donc. Ok, très bien. Soy Eileen Grand-Emile, fille d'une indigène.
I am LLort gives.
Hija de una indígena y de un africano que
Our people is from African origin that was enslaved. I come from a country from Africa Sur that colonized our country.
Que la France dit être sa propriété.
80,000 square kilometers, and France says that is their property.
Les agriculteurs, les administrations locales doivent demander à la France s'ils peuvent disposer des terres pour nourrir ou scolariser les habitants de la Guyane.
If in order to eat and for students to go to school, we have to ask France some land to build schools and for agriculture.
Castro que je représente, je suis sa remplaçante. Il est député à l'Assemblée nationale française.
I am the deputy, deputy from Castro, who was elected by the French Parliament. He represents us in the French Parliament.
Que la France reconnaisse qu'elle n'est pas légitimement propriétaire des terres de Guyane.
Their struggle is to say that France cannot own the land of Guyana. It belongs to us. The land of Guyana belongs to us.
De leur propre terre.
So that the people from Guyana enjoy of their land.
Décident des lois, décident des choix de leur développement, du développement de notre pays, de notre système éducatif, de notre système de santé.
We should decide for the legislation of the laws of the development that we want and everything that we need. We have to decide ourselves. Our people should decide.
Nos enfants connaissent plus l'histoire de la France ou de l'Europe que celle des pays du continent sud-américain et de notre pays.
At school, our children know the history of France from Europe, but they don't know their own history, the history of the Caribbean, of Latin America.
Le gouvernement français se dit solidaire de différents peuples et pays dans le monde. Cependant, il refuse d'entendre nos revendications légitimes et notre droit à décider nous-mêmes pour nous-mêmes.
The French government has not decided to accept our rights to our independence and self-determination.
Les Guyanais continuent à se mobiliser.
The Guyanan people from Guyana are mobilized.
Avec le député, dénoncer la situation dans laquelle nos intérêts ne sont pas pris en compte, la dénoncer au Parlement français, mais aussi à l'échelle internationale. Et c'est donc ce combat que nous faisons aujourd'hui ici à Cuba.
The struggle of Deputy Castro and of us is to denounce in the French Parliament the situation of our country and also in the international level and today here in Cuba.
Dire que notre mouvement politique, le MDES, mouvement de décolonisation et d'émancipation sociale, se bat depuis 30 ans pour faire progresser notre lutte pour notre souveraineté.
And it's been 30 years, our political movement that is called the Movement of Decolonization and for Social Emancipation, we're struggling for our sovereignty.
Il est fondateur de ce parti.
I am a founder, one of the founding members of this party.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Nous avons rejoint le CPA, Caribbean Progressive Alliance, qui réunit plusieurs colonies de la Caraïbe sous domination hollandaise, anglaise, américaine, française et même colombienne pour le cas de l'île de Saint-Andrés en face du Nicaragua.
We are part of an alliance. What we want is to reinstatement of our country on the list of the UN for those countries that are not self-government, that do not have their own government, in order to reach full sovereignty. Thank you so much, ICAP Thank you, everyone.
Muchas gracias a ustedes.
Thank you.
Le cedemos la palabra
We grant the floor now to Mombegewi Simbarache, Secretary of International Relations of the National African Union of Zimbabwe of the Patriotic Force ZANU-PF. And we ask, please, to the friend from Egypt, please prepare yourself for your presentation. You may remain in your seat and open the microphone over there, or if not, you come to the podium. Please turn the microphone on if you're going to talk from your place.
You can turn on the microphone. Will you go to the podium?
Yeah.
Now. Entonces le solicitamos al amigo de Egipto que se vaya alistando para saber si lo hará desde su asiento o desde el podio. También que esté listo el amigo Johnny García de Venezuela.
Muchas gracias.
Giving me the floor. I'm here representing the Zimbabwe African National Union Patriotic Front, which is the ruling party in Zimbabwe, which is the party which fought and defeated the forces of colonialism, racism in Zimbabwe. The only point that I would like to make is that we did not achieve our victory on our own. When we decided to launch our armed struggle back in 1963, we did not have a single gun. And yet we were facing a vicious, racist colonial power entrenched in our country. So our desire for the armed struggle was indeed an aspiration rather than a recognition of the reality on the ground. And the point I want to make here is that we were able to make progress because of solidarity. Solidarity. And for us, solidarity is the glue that keeps the progressive and revolutionary forces together, where in our individual weaknesses, we become strong. So it was a great honor for my party to be invited to this very, very important conference to join the rest of progressive political organizations in the celebration of the 170th birthday of that revolutionary intellectual, Jose Marti. We are, therefore, greatly honored to be here today. Our president and the first secretary of our party said, Cuba is our closest ally. Although we are a small country, we must be present in order to express our solidarity. On top of that, we owe so much to the revolutionary people of Cuba. We in Africa, and Southern Africa in particular, because we reached a stage in our struggle for independence when the apartheid regime in South Africa backed by the imperial forces of this world, had decided that the tide of freedom, which was moving from the north to the south, will stop in Angola, in Namibia, and in South Africa itself. And it is on record for all of us that the tide was turned by that extraordinary act of solidarity by Cuba. The role that they played by introducing Cuba's revolutionary forces on African soil to defend and protect African independence and African self-determination. And for this, we shall always be extremely grateful. A colleague of ours in the region, you know, Zimbabwe is under sanctions, and the Western countries, whenever they are holding meetings with the African countries, Zimbabwe is routinely excluded. And for various reasons, of course, other countries attend. But in this particular instance, one foreign minister declared to say, if Zimbabwe is not invited, then we are not going. But he ended up going. When he came back in his parliament, he was asked, but Mr. Foreign Minister, you declared that Zimbabwe, if Zimbabwe is not invited, we were not going. But you have just come away from there. So that foreign minister stood up and said, yes, yes, you can suffer for a friend, but you cannot die for a friend. But Cuba, I think, is about the only revolutionary country who said, we are prepared to die for our revolutionary friends. Today, the Battle of Fito Cannavale has been declared Southern Africa Liberation Day for our region. We observe it every year as a very important day in the calendar of our liberation struggle. We are in the process of building an African Liberation Museum in Zimbabwe. And we are very grateful that Cuba has agreed to play a role in that museum. The liberation of the African continent cannot be complete without a chapter being devoted to the role played by Cuba. Cuba's role in the liberation of our continent did not end with training our forces and sending its forces to defend us. We have been very, very fortunate to enjoy the fruits of Cuban development. Cuba, as we all know, is a small country. It's not endowed with abundant resources, but they have been prepared to share the little that they have with all of us, both in this region and in the African continent. We today enjoy good health because of Cuban doctors. We today have been able to produce first-class teachers of science, mathematics, technology because of the contribution that Cuba has made Initially, we sent students here. Later on, we decided that let's set up special universities in our own countries where Cuban professors would come and teach our people. And so our areas of cooperation have developed our countries at a much faster rate than we would have done on our own. In the same way that without Cuban intervention in our liberation struggle, it would have taken us a much longer time. And therefore, as I stand here, I would like to pay tribute to the inspiration that the Cuban Revolution has had from that godfather of revolution, Jose Marti, which is cascaded down to more recent eminent revolutionaries, Commandant Fidel Castro, Raúl Castro, and the current leader, Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez. These are revolutionaries who have worked to defy the most powerful imperial force the world has ever seen, only 90 miles away. To have been able to galvanize the Cuban people to resist, we would like to pledge our support for the Cuban Revolution. Yes, we know you have been embargoed for over 60 years. We have only been sanctioned, not to the same extent, for 20 years in Zimbabwe. We know the pain. Your embargo is more comprehensive, but you have resisted. You have fought against it. You have developed. The recent COVID-19 has indicated how callous the Western powers can be. They developed their vaccines and decided that the developing world should not benefit from those vaccines. We congratulate Cuba for having developed a number of vaccines, although we know that a number of stumbling blocks were put in their way in terms of making it more widely available. But we are very grateful that Cuban scientists and technologists were able to, in a very short space of time, come up with the relevant vaccines. And of course, we in the developing countries, we in Africa are the principal beneficiaries. Well, I don't want to take too much time, but simply to pay tribute to the Cuban people, the Cuban revolution, the Communist Party of Cuba, and the entire leadership, and give our assurance that small as we are, we will continue to stand by your side, because you have demonstrated that you are indeed revolutionaries, and we owe you so much. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. We had asked Kamal Gabalov, the president of the Egypt-Cuba Solidarity Organization. Are you going to speak from your seat?
Yes.
¿Puede encender el micrófono?
You can turn your mic on. Hermanos,
I am here from Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser. I wish to express the ideas of Gamal Abdel Nasser. There is a new generation here, but Nasser, he is usually supporting, giving solidarity with Cuba, and I am here. I have two identities. Firstly, I am the president of Egypt-Cuba Friendship Association, which is going to celebrate this year 55 years since it's established. Secondly, I am here as a journalist. I was working. I am now retired, but I am still working and writing. I'm still writing in Al-Ahram, which is one of the biggest newspapers in the world. And I'm continuing writing, expressing my solidarity as a journalist, as a president of Egypt-Cuba Friendship Association. So our society, Egypt-Cuba Friendship Association, is headed Honorable Chairman, who is Abdel Hakim Gamal Abdel Nasser. Also, we are in the association preparing for 3 events. This year, as I told you before, we are going to celebrate 55 years of establishment of our association. This association established during Nasser era also, and it's the only association it's, if you say Caribbean and Latin America countries, they have only one association. But for Cuba, we have our association, which means how important is Cuba for Egypt continuously and in the heart of the Egyptians. Also, I am Arabic. From Egypt is an Arabic country. And as I see before here, the year 2006, when I came here for the first time, I saw how much, during that time I was not member yet to the association. I came here as a journalist. I saw how much Cuba is supporting the Arab, how do you say, how do you say, countries, and I see the people in the street shouting, supporting the Lebanese who are struggling against Israel. Since that time, since I sat in front of Che Guevara memorial there in Santa Clara, I started myself to write, supporting, showing, expressing my support to Cuba. And that's why we are preparing for 3 things to do this year, celebrating 55 years of establishing our association, which means it will continue forever with Cuba. Secondly, we are preparing next year, the year 2024, to gathering our brothers in the Arab world, associations. I hope we can help organize a conference between Arab associations and together to show our support and solidarity with Cuba. On 25th, if you remember, some of you, I was there at the Africa Cuba conference, Solidarity Conference, which was in Abuja. That time, I invited you all on behalf of Egypt-Cuba Friendship Association to put in mind that Egypt will welcome you all for the next conference I mentioned that to Mr. President of ICAP, that we are waiting for you all to come to Egypt, and Egypt-Cuba Friendship Association welcoming you all, even you are not members with associations, but to show how much Cuba is important for Egypt, how much the Egyptians are not here representative the government. I am proud to be Egyptian, Egypt Nasser, I repeat. I am proud to be Arabic. I am proud also to be African. That's why I wish to say something. Viva Egypt friendship. Viva! Viva! As I am Arabian, Viva Arab Cuba friendship. Viva! The third is Viva Africa Cuba. Viva!
¡Viva! Muchas gracias. Johnny García Calle, por favor. Invitamos a prepararse al amigo Barón Hidrobo. Barón Hidrobo. Bueno, Barón, llévate entonces.
Ya casi acabo con esto. ¡Viva Martí! Bueno, traigo un saludo del presidente Nicolás Maduro y del pueblo venezolano. Hermanos y hermanas en Bolívar, en Martí.
Brothers and sisters in Bolívar and Martín, in Chávez and Fidel, I take this occasion to appreciate all the authorities that were made possible for these activities to be all the necessary strength to support these heroic and dignified people of Cuba. And I say it because we are only one country, the big nation of that our liberators dreamt of, heroes, men and women heroes who gave their lives even without caring for divisions that from the north they try to apply on our peoples. We are men and women of good who have in Martí the light and the guide for the struggle of the peoples of the world. Allow me to comment, to tell you, recently, last Saturday, there was 142nd anniversary of the visit of José Martí's visit to Venezuela. Who, at that time, without taking out the dust from the road, he didn't ask where to eat or where to sleep, but how to get to the statue of Simón Bolívar. And to commemorate this 170th anniversary of the most universal of Cubans, in this sense, we continue to point out that that solidarity and processes of changes in this continent who are besieged by imperial arrogance. And I also take this opportunity to denounce the criminal blockade of the American government towards Cuba, to give back the territory of Guantanamo to their legitimate owners, to take out of the spurious and nefarious list of countries sponsors of terrorism. I also want to denounce all the measures imposed by the American people against our country. We also demand the devolution of their assets having sequestered by the White House. We also demand the blockade against Nicaragua, the coup d'etat against Peru, the struggle of the Palestinian and Sahrawi causes, the liberation of our sequestered diplomats who have been arrested, Alan Saab, and the cause of the independence of the Puerto Rican people. Finally, from the movement of friendship and solidarity, Venezuela, Cuba, and the continental network of Latin American and Caribbean network of solidarity for the just causes, we invoke the spirit of Bolivar and Martí to union and integration, to make the Martí's thought a reality when he says, and I quote, "It's a time of we should be all together as the silver in the roots of the Andes in order to guarantee a free Latin American, independent and sovereign Latin America." I would like to end with Martí's phrase that alludes not only to Venezuela but to all our continent. When I said, "Give me Venezuela to serve, she has in me a son." So today we all say, in this important event, that we can say that to our dear Jose Martí, our apostle, please tell Cuba, tell us how to serve you. We are our sons and daughters. We can serve you. Long live Cuba. Long live Jose Martí. Nation or death, we shall overcome. Loyal, always loyal, never a traitor.
Sí, por favor, el amigo Barón Hidrobo, presidente.
Please, Comrade Barón Hidrobo from the Ecuador Network of Solidarity. Is he here? Are you going to speak from your seat or come to the podium, to the rostrum?
No. Le pedimos entonces.
No. Then we ask Elisa Pedro from Angola, President of the Angolan League of Solidarity with the Peoples and Vice President of the World Council for Peace.
Muito obrigada, muitas graças. Como lhe disseram aqui, eu sou Elisa, vindo de Angola. Pensei eu que seria muita ingratidão se não me levantasse para
to have the floor and present our solidarity to the people of Cuba. Today, I am sending a message from the Angolan League of Friendship and Solidarity with Cuba. This was the name given by our first president, Antonio Agostinho Neto, to show the solidarity of the people of Angola to the people of Cuba and their contribution to our independence. Thanks to this heroic people, today we are an independent country, because in the most difficult time, when only minutes we were only minutes from the independence, we had an aggression from imperialists. Agostinho Neto decided together with the Cuban people, with your leader, Fidel Castro, they decided to send a good team of fighters to defend our independence. There has never been
praticamente em uma hora nós conseguimos vencer a batalha de Kifangongo. Nunca nos esqueceremos disso. Nunca. Por isso, eu estava sentada aí, quando ouvi as palavras do meu companheiro africano do Zimbábue, é realmente uma realidade, e eu já não vou repetir.
I'm not going to repeat what I have said before or what has been said before, but today we know what solidarity is, thanks to the Cuban people. And when we enjoy our independence, the first thing Agostinho Neto said, when Namibia and South Africa were free and independent, that's why we want to support with our solidarity those peoples. Our duty is to provide solidarity. That's all of us duty to show our solidarity, because if we are able to be here today, it's because we felt the presence of the Cuban solidarity in our countries. Once again, thanks to Cuba and to the Cuban people. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Elisa. Voy a volver a mencionar a Barón, quizás.
I am going to call again, perhaps, from Los Angeles, please. Malik, is he here? Thank you. We call then our friend from Tanzania to get ready.
Good morning, everybody. Friends, comrades, enemies. I'm sure in a room this big, a conference this big, we have some of those as well. I'll be brief, acknowledging the time, but my name is Luis Malik. I organize with a group based out of Los Angeles in the United States, U.S. Hands Off Cuba Committee. And we engage in the very important solidarity work of organizing the Cuba off of the imperialist blockade that our nation is imposing on this valiant island, and especially at this moment, organizing to remove Cuba from the so-called list of states sponsoring terrorism. What a load of crap that is. So you could imagine my enthusiasm, my excitement being able to speak on a panel of this theme, and the joy that it gives me to be here. Thank you to all the comrades that have spoken, especially, of course, from the African liberation struggles. We understand in LA too, we're part of the African and the Latino American struggles. But my point here, and what I want to bring to you all, is an increased understanding that the solidaristic movement for Cuba and for the other people's movements of the world is growing in the United States. After a long time on the defensive and on the retreat, in the last 5 years especially, there's been a significant positive development. For example, in Los Angeles, for the 10 years before 2019, there wasn't a single solidarity organization working for the liberation or the solidarity with Cuba. Our group formed in 2019 and has since then developed into one of the most active, the most youth-led committees, organizations of over 45 organizations, mostly unions, national liberation parties, Chicano parties, Filipino parties, black struggle parties, as well as even liberal unions, in our fight. So we believe that there's optimism, and we know that this optimism isn't coming just from the stuff that we're doing, but also from, and listen to this in your analysis, that the material conditions are worsening in the United States, that the masses of the workers and the masses of peoples of the United States are facing increased hunger, increased exploitation, higher rent burdens, all of the things, and these are real struggles that are moving people not inevitably into revolutionary struggle, but into clear opposition with our government, into clear opposition with the capitalists. The capitalists and the government are virtually the same thing. But that creates an opportunity both for us in doing solidarity work, for all the other liberation movements around the world. So my key point is that I want you to begin to update your analysis, especially since the 2020 rebellion that we've had, that things are developing in the United States. Perhaps we won't be at the forefront yet, but we know that when our time comes, we'll receive the important solidarity of the Cuban revolutionary people, the Angolan revolutionary people, the Zimbabwean revolutionary people, the Bolivian, Venezuelan, and so many more. So I hope that you're ready at that moment, and we know that we're preparing for that moment. Just to say a couple more comments briefly about our organization, LA Hands Off Cuba Committee. We're growing. We collaborate with the CTC in Cuba. Thank you so much, Leima. The Federation of Cuban Women, the Young Communists in Cuba, not just to organize trips, and we have many of those, not just to deliver resources, and we have done many of that, but also to do the basic political education work in the United States, and the consciousness building and the organization building, because despite the material conditions worsening, we are still at historic lows in terms of levels of consciousness, class consciousness, political education, and basic organizational infrastructure to sustain the type of long-term fight that will be necessary. In the short term, we need to get Cuba off of this damn list. In the medium term, we need to end the damn blockade. And in the long term, we need to overthrow the capitalist government, the imperialist government, the settler colonial government that is the big bane enemy of the entire world. We understand that. Viva Cuba! Viva Martí! Viva la lucha anticolonial. Hasta la victoria siempre.
Muchas gracias, Malik. Tenemos por acá a la amiga Adela.
We have Adela Paneza Acirilla. Is she here? Please. National Coordinator of Solidarity with Cuba in Panama. You have the floor.
Ya puede hablar.
Buenos días.
Good morning to all those who are here with us and the people of the South American Brigade with whom we have shared, and all of those present here. We couldn't be separated and estranged and not share the solidarity with Cuba. It's true that Cuba has been an example for the humanity. Without Cuba, I think the world would be much worse than it is. And we need to acknowledge the importance of Cuba's role in the work every one of us does, because each of our countries has to be very grateful to our country. That's the pressure, the international pressure, and the solidarity support of Cuban peoples and Fidel Castro was what made possible that we could mark the birth of our political awareness in Panama. That's something we have to be very grateful for all the time. That's why we are part of what the Cuban solidarity is, and I want to share with you that few months ago we had agreed to do in our country. Follow the example of the eternal commander of the Cuban Revolution and meet the values he attributed to humanity and he gave to humanity. That's something that's fundamental, and it's acknowledged the heroic role played by Cuba in the permanent loyalty to the principles of freedom, self-determination, sovereignty, and solidarity. Therefore, we demand the soon re-establishment of normal relations, diplomatic relations between Cuba and the United States. I want to lead this well knowing that Cuba is free and then Cuba can develop freely without blockade, and that Cuba can work with our countries. We cannot have business with Cuba because we have pressure against us in all our countries. That's why we demand the immediate lifting of the cruel and inhuman blockade against Cuba that really is the main obstacle for the development of all our peoples. We also demand categorically the closing of the Guantanamo Naval Station because it also affects us. And we condemn the Helms-Burton Act and all the possibilities that act provides for playing obstacles to the development of all our countries. And one of our goals in participating in this 5th International Conference for the Equilibrium of the World with Comrade Susana Vasquez and myself, both members of the Solidarity chapter, we think that we have to reactivate the Martí chair in Panama. Not only that, but also include the chair of critical and revolutionary thinking, because it's very important to study Fidel's thinking, Fidel's thought, because we know that Martí's thought is essential and it's very unique. That's one thing we have to leave with us here. We have learned so much from about Fidel and from Martí in this conference that it gives us a motive, the reason to continue being solidarian with this Cuban people and with all the peoples who suffered, like all our colleagues have presented here, and that every one of us continues studying such a deep and complex thought legated by Martí. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you so much. We have from the Saint Fidel Castro Center, Esperanza Lugo is going to make an announcement. There are other friends who want to speak. Please come to us, because we are at 11:30. We're going to have a recess.
Esperanza,
Esperanza, who asked to make an announcement. And we ask our friend Dorlimar to get ready afterwards, and friends from Ecuador and Tanzania who please get ready. If there is any other request, please come to us.
A todos los delegados del evento los invita el día 29.
The Fidel Castro Center, we're inviting you all. If anyone wants to come to this visit, there are different hours, and we're going to have a visit. If anyone wants to visit, please tell us.
De visitar el centro, que hoy nos honran con la presencia de su director, investigadores. Muchas gracias a todos.
There will be researchers, and the director will be there on the 29th of January. Dorlimar, please. You have the floor. Any other requests, please come to us and tell us.
Bueno, es un placer y un privilegio estar.
It is a pleasure and a privilege to be here among friends. My name is Dolival Neuron. I'm a Methodist pastor in the People's Church in the city of New York, and I am also the associate director of Pastor for Peace. Pastor for Peace has been a project of the Interreligious Foundation that has organized caravans of humanitarian help in several countries in Latin America, including Cuba, for over 3 decades. In the year 1993, during the second caravan, we were bringing school buses to be used by the children of Cuba, and they were impounded by the American authorities in the border. The answer given by the caravan people towards this aggression has remained in history as one of the most beautiful solidarity pages. The events of the yellow bus, as it is known here in Cuba, has been a symbol of the struggle and of victory that reaffirm what the hero, Jose Marti, the hero of international people, when he said that a just principle from the back of a cave is stronger than an army. They always said there is no contradiction between the message, the social message of the gospel that Jesus said in Matthew 25 and the revolution. As we see, it is developing in Cuba. The Cuban Revolution may have been more faithful to Matthew 25. Is it frequent for churches that have been silent towards oppression of imperialism and destruction of the hope of the children of the world? He always reminded us that we cannot practice faith, the faith that the Bible teaches us in the New Testament, without being a revolutionary. For over 3 decades, we have continued this legacy from our faith under our pastor, Reverend Lucius Walker, and now under his daughter, Gail Walker. We have mobilized Cubans and Americans from the most diverse beliefs and lifestyle who have also embraced the struggle against the genocide blockade against Cuba. In Pastor for Peace, we have seen with our own eyes how powerful is love against intolerance and cruelty. For participants of the United States, caravans represent 2 moral imperatives. On the one hand, helping those who suffer because of the unjust policies of the government of the United States, and on the other hand, to break barriers imposed by to the American people by this blockade, Reverend Lucius Walker said that what Cuba needs is a solidarity and prophetic action to do away with the blockade. It has to do with our right to express our love, that it should not be determined by the government of the United States, but by our faith. It is a gift for me to be able to participate in a space like this, a space among friends. And I have not the least doubt that together, men and women, we can go, that is, break hatred and fear and live with love in this planet. We need that the example of Cuba continues to be. We should be the good human beings that we're able to do, be good citizens of the world, because international citizenship is a duty. And going with noble and just causes is a mandate. The American government does not respect anyone. Cuba, as well as Puerto Rico, as their own citizens, and anyone who loves justice and freedom. Esteemed leader and Baptist pastor for civil rights, Martin Luther King Jr., said that humanity is called to face all evil. He spoke of 3 evils: capitalism, imperialism, and racism. And we have to face them all with actions of love. We will continue to face the evils of the world from our faith and from our love for humanity. For the people of Cuba, there will always be lots of love. Cuba is not alone. Cuba has friends, women and men friends, who defend and love her. There will be no barriers among us, no policies, no imperial laws that will close the road to friendship, because our peoples, there are no borders for our peoples. Love and solidarity and friendship of human beings do not know any limits. We will continue to be missionaries of love, missionaries of friendship, missionaries of solidarity, until we build this balance in the world that we want so much and we dream so much, with all and for the good of all. Long live the Cuban people, long live the Cuban Revolution, long live Fidel, and long live Jesus, and long live the friendship among peoples.
Muchas gracias a
Thank you very much, Limar, for your words. We have a request. We have a request from other friends. Please, Philippe Fernandez from the Communist Party in Canada. And I would also warn you that we are going to have a break. And of course, in short, we're going to have information, a presentation about Cuba-U.S. relations with the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs from Cuba. As I said, this intervention will be at 11:45 in the morning. That's why we're going to have this brief recess so that we won't lose a minute of that presentation from our chancery. We will go to lunch and we'll be back here at 2:30 p.m. and we will have the conference by our reporter, Raúl Capote.
I felt compelled to speak here for a few minutes because we come from Canada. My name is Philip Fernandez. I am with the Communist Party of Canada, Marxist-Leninist. And I feel I need to speak here because we in Canada sometimes feel that people perceive us closer to the North Pole than sharing the longest land border with the United States. And I want to tell you that the feeling of friendship between the Canadian people and the Cuban people is a long one and a deep one. Cuba established relations with Halifax in the late 19th century to establish fishing relations. In 1930s, when Machado, the dictator, was asked to seek asylum in Canada after he was driven away by the Cuban people, Canadians said no, he has to go to the States. In the time of the Cuban Revolution, we stood with the Cuban people and their historic leader, Fidel Castro, and we have opposed the blockade against Cuba since the very beginning. So we say that we're not second to anyone in our support of the Cuban people. We were also part of the international campaign to free the Cuba Five, and we continue to have actions in Canada, in all the major cities, at the US Embassy to oppose the blockade. So I just want to say that our feelings for the Cuban people and the legacy of Fidel Castro and Jose Marti. I think that Fidel Castro was the continuer of the work of Jose Marti, and so the legacy of these great historic personalities belongs to all humanity and to the Canadian people as well. Thank you very much.
Sí, hemos recibido.
Yes, we have received several requests for the floor for the afternoon. We will be here. I just want to just warn for the afternoon. I had mentioned Barón from Ecuador, Tanzania will speak in the afternoon, Libre Sankara from Russia, the Fidel Castro Foundation in Russia, and other friends. And before we close the session, I give the floor to colleague Deidre from New Zealand, and we will close the panel and we'll give some other information.
Gurmagat. I had to speak in Irish first, even though I'm from New Zealand, okay? I had to do that. So, but I feel very privileged to be here, and I'm really, really grateful for all my friends here for inviting us to speak and be part of this and to experience being here. Posters of Fidel and Marty were a big part of my growing up, and they hung alongside our local heroes back in Northern Ireland. And it was kind of a miracle to find myself be here because it was such a big part of that growing up. And now being here and seeing the children walking past on their way to school and just laughing and singing spontaneously is a really important thing, because one of the things in the Troubles was that our children weren't playing, things were closing down, and our children were forgetting how to be joyful. And one of the things that I'm concerned about in our whole society now is because of the prevalence of the internet and the prevalence of the streaming things and the lack of kind of parity about the information that's being served, is that a lot of our children are losing their joy and their spontaneity, and it's still here. The children here still have that, and you've created that safe space for children to feel that joy, and that's not a small thing. That's a really, really big thing, and it seems like it's something to take for granted, but it's not. Because the suicide rates are rising all over the world, especially for young people. And how we deal with trauma and how we kind of process that there's different ways of doing it around the world. But when you've got a community that are coming together and a community that is supporting itself and bringing those values forward. It's really important. The other things that is wonderful to see is the beginning of permaculture, because the individual sustainability parts are critical to our survival as a species, but also the surveillance that's happening around the world. Like New Zealand is still part of the Five Eyes surveillance group, which means that all of the phones are covered, all of the Facebooks, and they're all covered. And so whatever you can do individually here to keep it independent is quite an inspiration. And it's definitely been an inspiration for us and for our party who've come here, and we'd really like to learn more and support more in whatever way we can. We're also incredibly grateful for the literacy skills that you've already sent to New Zealand, and all the, you've given us so much, and you might think you're a small, country, but, spend a night with a mosquito and you know how small it can be effective, and you're my favorite mosquitoes. But thank you. And I'd really, from the bottom of my heart, really love what you're doing, and I wish you well. Thank you.
You make us laugh. Muchas gracias por destacar lo positivo del mosquito, y bueno, aquí estaremos como el mosquito. Entonces, muchas gracias, Deidre.
Thank you so much, Deidre from New Zealand, a member of the World Beyond War. Thank you for bringing your comments here. No, I was telling you that we're going to have, before the recess, we will have a gift that Ocean Press is giving a gift. The books that he presented earlier they are going to receive a book as a gift of the publishing house. And let me read a phrase that you will have with this book. It's a phrase by Fidel, pronounced on June the 8th in 1961. The world, quote, "The world has been in solidarity with Cuba. That's why our island is in solidarity with all the peoples of the world. Cuba has had the occasion of experiencing the solidarity of the people. That word is fully meaningful to us Cubans, and that is why we that know what world solidarity is, we are obliged to go with all the peoples of the world and be in solidarity with them, and how we have been able to face the attacks from imperialism. With that solidarity, we will continue to struggle and we will continue to resist. Thank you. We will meet again at 11:40.